Stop. Don't go anywhere too fast. It's time to listen to a Head Over the Footy podcast.
Yes, there you go. You heard the intro, Charlie. You do a great job with that intro. But welcome to everyone listening on the show, or if you're watching, thanks for watching as well. We're on YouTube and Spotify. Now, remember to make sure with our podcast, if you enjoy it, the best way to sort of stay up to date with everything is to follow us on Spotify and then turn on the bell, and then as soon as our episodes come out, you get a notification. So it's the best way to sort of stay on top of Head Over the Footy podcast. But it was a good round 10. There was a draw. There was a 1-point victory. There was a loss to Geelong at GMHBA Stadium. There was some sad news, some good news for the likes of Essendon supporters after they beat GWS. And there was a 91-point thrashing. But let's get into our guests before we get into all that. And we got a debutant, Sam Gill. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. I'm excited to be here for the first time. I've been listening to everything, and obviously Charlie's my brother.
Yes.
And there's plenty of things he said that I agree with, and there's been a few things that I don't.
Like?
I think there was a few ridiculous calls. The first one that I noticed was that if he falls outside the top 10, he'll never come back. And then I think the next week
of tipping,
and the next week he was out of the top 10, and then
he came back.
I think the Nick Dacos, Harley Reid thing I disagreed with, and also the Carlton Collingwood stuff.
Yeah, wow.
But I feel like I need to make a promise now as well, sort of unrealistic promise, but I'll try and work on that.
Yeah. Well, you're a big Essendon supporter. We should mention that as well.
Yeah.
And it's a good week for you to come on because you guys just knocked over GWS, which was, it's probably, you could call it a shock result. But we'll talk about that later in the What Else Is Happening segment. We're going to get into the top story. Charlie, though, welcome, mate. How you going?
Good, thanks. Good
Great
to be here.
Have you, mate? I just thought I'd give you a nice little greeting.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Well, let's get into it. Top story from the round. And it was hard to decide what the top story from the round was because there's not really a clear one. It's not like the Jordan Clark incident in that Freo game at Adelaide Oval a few weeks ago. There's no real obvious one this week. But I thought the most sort of one that is going to be talked about, and there might be a bit of debate in it, is the fact that there was another draw and there's more calls for extra time. Now, some people there's two camps here. One camp is you leave it as a draw after the time, or you play an extra 5 minutes, which I believe one of the Essendon players mentioned as a possibility, and it's obviously been mentioned a lot. Now, yeah, it was that Crows game against Lions where it was a draw. Sam, we'll go to you. Do you think there should be extra time? What's your view?
No, I agree with what Charlie said on the previous podcast, that a draw is kind of a unique thing. And, there's like, it makes it more memorable in a way. Like, looking back on other draws, obviously the grand final, everyone's going to remember that anyway, but there's other games that I can remember that, if it goes to extra time and one team kicks 5 goals, no one's going to remember that. Whereas draws are unique. They don't happen that often. It's just been like quite random that there's been 2 early on this year. So, I think just put it in the cupboard and talk about it in like 2 years when there's the next draw. Like, what is there, one a year? 1 a year, probably.
Roughly. That's probably the average,
1 or 2 a year. So it's probably not going to happen again. But yeah, I agree with what Charlie said, that it's unique and you want to keep as much unique factors of the game. Like, I'm a traditionalist as well.
Yeah.
And it also makes it interesting, like, with for percentage and things like that.
Yeah.
Like, when Essendon got the draw and we have quite a poor percentage, that, now it didn't matter, percentage, unless it's against Collingwood. But now there's 4 teams.
Yeah.
And they're all going to be probably going for the 8, so now it probably comes into it again. But Yeah, I kind of like it. And yeah, I think I agree with what you said as well on the previous one. You'd mentioned there was someone on the, what's the show with Adam Cooney?
Armchair Experts.
Armchair Experts, yeah. And the woman on that said that, if it's going to be extra time, they might just both retreat and not try and attack and whatnot. And I think it's a lot more exciting.
Charlie?
Yeah.
I'm going to disagree, and I know what camp you're in here, Charlie. You're in the you're in the leave it as a draw camp. What do you want to add to Sam's argument there?
It's a question to you, which is, what do you gain from a draw? What's gained what's gained from there being extra time? I mean,
well, we talk about everyone saying that it's we're all going to remember it as a draw, which is cool, but it's the same. We're all going to remember it as an extra time game as well. Now, my view is
no, you're not. In extra time, a team could storm away, win by 4 goals. No one remembers games where a team wins by 4 goals.
That's in extra time. Just add that to that sentence.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough, but I still don't think that it's more memorable than there being a draw.
Well, for me, it's entertainment, and I think it'll be much more interesting than the game going to a draw. The other thing I'll say about a draw is if there's a draw, let's have a song for a draw.
Well, yeah, so both teams get it once,
Maybe
and then they sing both
have a
songs
song,
at once.
have a song for a draw, because
Maybe
that eerie feeling is just not good.
What about the umpires? Maybe you get like the camera, the umpires in the room.
Yeah,
they do a theme
that'd
song.
be good.
I don't know what type of song they could do. You get roaming BT in the umpires' change rooms.
Yeah.
But I will say this on the draw, that if they did change it, I think it would be a lot more exciting which I think is what they're doing for the grand final. If it is a draw and there's extra time, instead, and it's again a draw, instead of doing another period of extra time, they'll just keep the game rolling. So if you're going to do it in regular season, I think it would be better to, instead of everyone stop and go back to the coaches and you go to extra time, I think it would be better if it's just sort of the siren goes and then everyone knows that it's the same score, and then you just keep going. Because it comes into it, people talk about like,
wait, is that the rule for grand finals?
The rule for grand final,
you stop.
The rule for grand final is you stop and then you play 2 5-minute periods. But then at the end of that, if the scores are equal, then it just goes into like golden point.
Golden goal, isn't it?
No, I think it's point.
Well,
I'm pretty sure we spoke about this, and I thought it was point, but they changed it to goal.
To goal
a couple of years ago.
Well, that's why I'm saying.
Yeah.
I love seeing like in the Adelaide Brisbane game, like just like it doesn't matter if it's a goal or a point. They're just like doing chaos, just trying to get the ball in.
Well, if you want entertainment, how about this?
I want entertainment, Charlie. Yes.
Then this is.
Do you want entertainment or you want a draw?
I think a draw has its own sort of particular type of entertainment to it. But if you want sort of real entertainment, the way you see it, I think it should be like this. The game ends. Both teams take 5 or 10 minutes probably 5 minutes to break and talk to their coach, and then they immediately go back on, and then it's just golden goal from there, or golden point. And that's just going to... How entertaining would that be? It'd be like war. It'd be like watching 2 medieval armies charging at each other.
So you're all for the extra time now, Charlie?
I'm not for extra time. I'm for... Well, I technically am, but I'm not for it. I'm not for it. I prefer a draw.
On the record, I technically am.
If you're going to go for extra time, then it should just be instantly golden point or golden goal.
Well, that's very cutthroat.
I think golden point, because it's kind of more unique.
Yeah.
And like the style of game is more chaos, and it's probably more to do with like... It's less to do with skill and more to do with just like sheer, just like grit.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like it'd be like 2 armies facing off against each other.
So good.
And also makes sense logistically because it would take a lot less to get there. Because then you'd have lots of problems if it's a low scoring game. Then, teams might not be able to kick goals that quickly.
Yeah, and it wouldn't affect the broadcasters too much as well. Because that's the other factor in all of this.
Yeah.
Is the broadcasters.
Yeah.
But like that shouldn't be much of an influence though. Like, it's about the game. Broadcasters is a major stakeholder. But if broadcasters are getting extra time footy, well, then you're pretty happy because that's really good entertainment for your channel. So
I'll tell you one more thing about the draw that annoys me whenever it comes up is that not the argument for extra time, but every time that something like this comes up, they'll be like, oh, look what they do in the NBA, look what they do in the NFL. Like, we shouldn't be looking to other competitions as what's the best thing, because I think the AFL is the best competition in the world.
Yeah.
Like, and just because the NBA or the NFL is bigger and it's in a bigger country doesn't mean they're doing it right. Like,
and also,
and it's a different sport.
And what kind of
it's
sport?
Different situation.
And what
you can look at it, but it's not a massive. It doesn't have massive weight to it. Like,
And what kind of sport lover wants all sports to be the same?
Yeah.
Like, that just seems ridiculous to me.
So I'll ask you guys again. Do you want extra time or do you want the draw?
I've said that I want a draw, but if there must be extra time, straight away golden point does sound good.
So golden point or the draw?
The draw. Stop trying to push the draw.
Well,
this
no,
is the thing.
You're causing these questions.
You're a media operator, so you're trying to put things on the agenda. But the fact is that every season it's just a carousel of these talking points. Draw, get rid of the bounce. Those two have literal no relevance. The nighttime grand final thing, that's relevant because the AFL is actually considering it. But is the AFL considering getting rid of the draw? They're not. Are they considering getting rid of the bounce? They're not. So it's just really fairly meaningless.
Well, that's fair to say. But when Adelaide midfielder Jordan Dawson saying it would be nice to have extra time, and it gets brought up every time. There's a draw.
I don't think the players.
The first thing Pendlebury said after the Anzac Day draw was extra time.
Oh yeah, I don't have Scott Pendlebury or Jordan Dawson's opinion on the draw any higher than mine or your opinion on the draw. It's the fans that the game is for.
Yeah, and there's a lot of fans saying extra time. It's ones that it divides everyone. This draw or extra time debate.
What do you think, Nath?
Here we go, Nath. We haven't got a mic on you, but say what do you reckon? Draw or extra time?
Instant. What's your response?
You got to stick with the draw.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
There you go.
As much as I'm probably the youngest in here by a long shot, no offense, lads, but
He's
stick with the draw. Taking 2 points at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Nath's going with the draw. There you go. Nath, just for everyone that's listening, you might have not heard Nath, but what did he say? He said, you got to go with the draw. Quote Nathan, done.
Yeah.
So there we go. We'll put a poll out. We'll see what everyone thinks. But that was the draw. And just to recap that game, Darcy Fogarty kicked 4 goals. Callum Archie kicked 4 goals as well. Isaac Rankin 3. Hugh McCluggage had 31 disposals. And Jared Berry had 30 disposals and a goal. And McCluggage also kicked a goal. But that was a close game. Like, both teams needed to win. So a draw is the outcome at the end of the day there. So interesting one. But there we go. Draw or extra time, put your vote in. We'll see how it ends up. Just before we move on, Sammy, to talking about what else is happening, what do you think? Should there be extra time or are you with the draw still after that little chat?
I'm still with the draw.
Yeah.
I feel like it's boring just for me and Charlie to agree on everything, but on this sort of traditional stuff, we agree a lot, and I think the draw is special and unique and needs to stay.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you were going to do it, I'd do that, and I don't feel as strongly on it as other things.